What is it you want, Barry? What do you want? You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Come with me if you want to live.
That's it, man. Game over, man. Game over.
The Force will be with you, always.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to 20th Century Geek. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and we are returning to our Predator retrospective. It's been a couple of years, but if you want to go back and just, before you listen to this, if you want to go back and listen to the original retrospective, it was on episodes 85 and 86, way back in 2019, before the world went completely mad. And yeah, it doesn't seem like just yesterday, but I'm joined again by the folks that joined me originally, the original sort of Predator, my original hunting pack, if you will. I'll let them introduce themselves. Ray from Into the Night. How are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good. Oh, thank you so much, Scott, for having us back. I can't wait to chat Predator again. A huge fan, as you know, and it just seems like yesterday that we had a chat about the retrospective. So yeah, I am amped up and ready to go for this one.
Excellent. Yeah, excited for this one. And also David from Signal of Doom. Dave, how are you doing? You okay?
I'm very well, thanks, man. Thank you, Scott, for having me on. Pleasure to be on here with Ray. Happy to talk more Predator. And I can't believe we've been hunting for 3 years. Yes. And it feels like 1 year, so much death in that time period. So much, some at my own hands, and great to be back.
It's been a wild time. It really has been a wild time. One of the things, obviously, when we did the last retrospective, the film we finished it on was obviously The Predator, and I think we all sort of denounced it as being mostly awful. And I think we all sort of, I went back and had a quick sort of listen. We all thought the franchise was dead. I think there's a
it felt dead.
Yeah,
it felt dead.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a
That'd be interesting.
Comment. Yeah. Well, there's a general comment from us. So we were a bit like, no, I think this has killed it. We were like, no one's coming back to this. So how did you guys feel when Prey was announced? Ray, what were your thoughts when you sort of saw those first things for Prey?
Very, very excited. It's funny that you mentioned that we all thought it was dead, because I think immediately when there was an announcement and there were like, previews for Prey, immediately got me excited again, mostly because of the premise. It was something that I think a lot of fans had been calling for ever since, say, Predator 2, which harks back to to Predators in olden day times. So this one kind of fit into that mold, and I remember seeing the first poster for Prey, which had had Naru in the foreground and just the outline profile of the Predator in the back, and it's like, yep, this looks like it's going to be good, and Dan Trachtenberg as well has a good track record, so quietly confident, really.
Yeah, it was interesting because when it did come out, I think quietly confident is a really good descriptor, because it was that thing where I was like, I've been burnt before. I don't want to sort of go into this full acceptance, but the more they kept releasing, the more I was like, oh, this could be good. This could be really interesting.
For sure.
And as you said, because the guys from like 10 Cloverfield Lane, so it's sort of like that was a real sort of strong where you're like, yeah, he's good, but then I've seen this before. Like, we all thought Shane Black was bringing something proper to the screen, so it was
true.
It was that quiet confidence. But I mean, Dave, what were your thoughts when you started to see the same thing?
Well, yeah, I was certainly feeling down and out after The Predator. And I remember I was really hyped for that. So it was kind of like high expectations and then low delivery. But doing the news for Signal of Doom, like covering all the news, when sort of the news started coming out kind of almost like in little segments about this, I was like, oh, cool. They're going to do what I've always thought they should do, and take a more simple kind of hunting story, take it back, all the way to Native Americans. I kind of pictured that they would kind of do what they did, a kind of more simple story and probably lower budget than, some of their other stuff. And I thought that might actually be the right strategy. So but like cautiously optimistic would sum it up, and also, and it's funny because it's been in the news so much and over the years. Like this has taken like 2 or 3 years to happen. I actually thought that I misheard it and thought it was going to be like a limited series TV show, and it wasn't until it just was about to come out that I realized. I think I said to you, Ray, "Is this a TV series or a movie?" And you're like, "A movie." And I actually thought it was like a 5-part, TV show. And no, I was by the time it came around, I was like, kind of like, well, the stink of the last movie's kind of gone away. They're doing this, so I was hopeful, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this film has got some interesting politics behind it as well, because before we get fully into it, like I watched it, I really enjoyed this film. I've got some points to raise, but there's generally good. And Predator sort of like, the Predator, it hasn't got the best history, I think. It's got a little uneven.
Sure.
But I was surprised that this was a straight to streaming release. I've seen on Hulu in the States and Disney Plus, or sort of like Star.
Oh, you thought it would have been a cinema release?
Well, Well, the reason I found out the reason why this isn't a cinema. And initially, it was going to be. That was the point.
Yeah.
It was going to be sort of like post. Obviously, like Disney obviously bought 20th Century Fox, and they were doing stuff, and they were looking to sort of start re-releasing IPs in the cinema using their sort of the back catalogue of 20th Century Fox. However, the contract stands that anything that Fox releases cinematically will automatically get there's a contract between them and HBO Max.
Oh.
So anything streaming would automatically go to HBO because it's part of their contract.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay.
So Disney made the decision that, we want to keep this because it's a good IP and we want people to come to sort of Disney Plus or Hulu. So we're not going to release it in the cinemas. We're just going to release it on streaming and use it as a promotional piece to get people to our streaming services.
Well, that's a wise move. I mean, and also, let's face it, I think the stakes are lower when it's a streaming release in a way. I like this movie, but if they put it in cinemas, I don't think it would have made like tons and tons of money. I think it would have, I think that this was the smart play. It's a way to kind of rebuild the brand up. Generally positive reviews, quite a bit of buzz about Predator. It kind of ticks all those boxes. So
I think in hindsight, they did. I certainly agree with you, Dave, as well. And I think it's probably a blessing in disguise in the sense that it relieves them of the pressure and of the scrutinizing eyes of the fans. It's like, it's only streaming. It's not the cinema. Not the cinema. It's not going to be a big budget release. So this may not have fallen into their perspective at all. But I do think it is good in the fact that even for as a fan and as a movie goer, it was like, okay, like the Predator burnt us. If this stuff's up, look, it's just straight to streaming. It can be just fobbed off as a B grade movie or whatever. So I think that's what made it so pleasantly surprising, the quality of it. And it's funny that you mentioned that, Dave, about if it had done well in the cinemas. It's so funny because I've been checking out the forums as well, and retrospectively, in hindsight, people are going, man, if they only had chosen to put this in the cinema, this would have raked in the cash. It is seen as a tremendous success for what it is as a streaming movie. So this is a great win. It's a real about face from the Predator movie, which we were all, as you're saying, down and out on. So I think it was a brilliant move. Yeah, no, I agree. I think I agree. I think you're right. Like I say, it's the right move. It was a sound move to make. Makes total sense. I think one of the things I find fascinating also is like that this wasn't instigated by Disney. This was obviously already greenlit and we'd already started within pre-production and sort of filming when the buyout happened.
Right. And they kept it. That's good.
So they were one where they were like, right, we'll keep that one going, I think. So, and I'm glad they did. But one of the things I was watching this and obviously seeing the promotion and stuff, and then there was all the big thing is it's going to be set in the early 1700s. It's going to be called Prey, and it's going to be this like prequel. It's in canon with the 87 film and all this other stuff, like different tone. But in my head, there's one of those things. I think you were saying before, David, you're like, it makes sense. Why not just do this? Like it brought to mind to me. I went back and I was having a look at I haven't got to hand anymore, but there's an anthology that Dark Horse did of sort of like short stories. It was a collection, quite short, of short Predator stories. And one of them in there, and I forget the name of it, but someone listeners won't remember it, but I remember the story, is basically, you know how you have like and this was set in Africa, so it was set on the plains, like Serengeti, and there was this young lad, and it's sort of like his rights, you know, that passage into manhood, how they have that sort of like the rich. And it's just it's this old guy who's telling him this story and says like, you have to go out, and this exact story is pretty much Prey. You have to go out and hunt something to pass into manhood. And he ends up sort of like taking on the Predator. And then the end of the story is him as an old man teaching this story to somebody else. But it's doing like 12 pages. So it's
tough gig for a kid. You have to kill a predator.
I think it's like... it wasn't supposed to be a predator. It's supposed to be like a lion or something. But it turns out to be a predator. But like, it's a really cool short story. So watching this film, I was like, oh, this is really good. This is exactly, you know, they're going. I don't know whether they went back to the comics and this sort of short story was in their mind. I don't know, but this felt more like they've gone, as you said, let's go back to basics. Let's go back.
They stripped it right down, which I think they needed to. It got them very cluttered, and generally that doesn't work for the Predator. I think by stripping it all the way back down, it's kind of a good way to see if it's still working, and I think it is working. And then I think the appetite is then, well, next time maybe we can go a bit bigger, you know, because we've built up a groundswell, we've got some forward momentum, and next time we could maybe take it a bit further, put it in cinemas, give it a bigger budget, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe bring in some aliens. Yeah,
actually have a decent crossover. That would be interesting.
Some xenomorphs.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. We'll get to the future actually, because there's been several. So I've seen different suggestions of where they should go and all this other stuff. And, like, you know, people make it, and there's a couple that I saw that I was like, I want that.
Sure.
But let's get into the film then, all right? So let's sort of like jump into the film. So the story is, in a nutshell, I'll give a quick summary, is, and I'm going to check where's my notes. I'm going to have to get my phone out, so I'm going to have to get the right names and stuff, because I don't want to start butchering that. I sort of go in and start sort of really...
Leave that to me. I'll do that.
Right. Prey. There we go. Right. So, Naru, that's it. I knew it was something. Okay. So, young Comanche woman, Naru, is treated as in sort of like she's expected to work within what the women of the tribe do. This is sort of gathering and doing repairs and doing the usual things back in the camp. Her brother, Tabe, I think I'm call it Tabe, is is part of the warrior sect within the village. He sort of goes out and hunts and fights on behalf of the tribe, but she wants to be a part of that as well. And on one excursion out, she's sort of determined to prove herself, but it doesn't go well, and one of the tribe is killed, and she's obviously seen to be as a healer. And the boys, because they are boys, I want to get to that. Like that basically sort of like the hunting bros, which is how I sort of see them, get attacked, and her brother goes missing. She goes back out to find him, and she has wielded this new axe on a string, which again I want to talk about as a hunting weapon. And whilst out, she comes across the predator. In this one, they're referred to as the feral predator.
Is that what it's called?
That's what they're referred to as. Cool. And he also comes across a group of French hunters, which idiots. She sees is wiped out after she is taken. Eventually, it sort of comes down to her. The predator ignores her on a number of occasions, not considering her to be a threat. Eventually, though, it comes down to her versus the predator, and using her wiles, her hunting skills, she is able to kill the predator and prove her worth by taking its head back to the tribe, as well as...
And a fairly dumb predator as well, like a pretty stupid predator.
We will get to the stupidity of the predators, but and anyway, she also takes back a flintlock pistol that was given to one of the French hunters in 1709. In the post-credits, or actually no, just in the credits animation, we see that the hunter ships return, and that gun is going to end up in the hands of Danny Glover. So let's get to it though. So this thing then of it being set in the early 1700s, and it being we are following that Native American, that indigenous people, the Comanche tribe. What were your thoughts about this, David? What were your thoughts about having it in that sort of setting?
Great. I'm a big fan of like Native American culture. Without knowing a ton about it, I just always am attracted to those characters, and I thought it was really cool. I thought like you get to use the great landscapes of the time period because they're kind of unspoiled, by modern civilization. And the classic hunters, like, I mean, they're a classic kind of hunter gatherers or whatever you want to call them. And, they are damn good hunters and good trackers. We all know this, like it's been beaten into our heads for many years. I love that culture. And I thought it was a great idea to give them all, we're not back in the days of Burt Lancaster playing Apache, genuine Native American actors playing those roles. I thought it was a stroke of almost genius, really. And set us up nicely. And they're not doing anything without meaning to be kind of mean. It is so tropey and cliche, but that works. Like we've all seen this story before about the hunter goes out and the one hunter who needs to prove themselves and the rest of the pack sort of don't like them and think they should be back at home base while they're out there doing it. We've all seen it before in many a movie. But it really works. There's a reason there's that dynamic. Yeah. And I thought you take that dynamic, which is so set in stone, you kind of can't get it wrong. And then you introduce the Predator. It was a fantastic thing. And then it's all just about the execution,
Yeah. What about yourself, Ray? What were your thoughts on that being sort of based in this sort of, 200 years ago in this Comanche tribe?
I mean, like we kind of touched upon it a bit earlier, Dave did, about the fact that, we've the fans have been wanting something like this in the past, and really it could be anything. Like your world's your oyster. I think by setting it with the Comanche tribe, with Native Americans, was a really astute decision from Trachtenberg because, and he mentions it as well in one of the interviews, that he generated this story because of his love for Billy in the original Predator film. And I think that touchstone by having, Billy, let's face it, arguably one of the more colorful, memorable characters in the OG Predator. So by tapping into that appeal of Billy the Tracker and expanding it and having it as like a 300-year-old Comanche tribe, I think that was a very smart move by doing it. Because we talk about it, and we'll probably talk about it a bit later on. You can set it with, the samurais or the Romans or, or any, or, in 18th century England or something. But they
Aztecs,
chose, Aztecs, yeah. But they chose, I think they chose the Native Americans for a purpose, and that was to really tap into that appeal that Billy had. So I'm very, very happy with it. And unashamedly, I'm a big Billy fan.
I've got a question, Ray.
Yeah.
I've got a question, man. In the original Predator, does Billy actually mention that he knew about Legends of the Predator? Because I thought someone said that. Is that true?
It's not.
Someone did say that, but it's
not Billy. It's not Billy. So it's the woman. No. It's the girl. It's the woman that they take. So there's a moment when they've mowed down, the scene where they all run out and they've all got the guns. And Bill Duke's come out and sort of because Jesse Ventura has just been killed. When they're laying in wait, when they've set the first booby trap for the Predator, she sort of has this story about, she says, women in the village would talk about in the hottest summers, this demon would come and hunt the men. And she says, cool. And she says, it goes back generations. So that's obviously South America. I mean, that's set in Valverde, this fictional South American country. But so the this idea of it going back like generations is woven into that first film. Yeah.
Well, there's sense. Also, Predators have always kind of in the so-called lore, many times Predators have come back and done crazy shit in Earth, like previous to even 1700. Like back in Aliens versus Predator, weren't they coming back from the dawn of time or something?
Yeah.
Right?
They were regarded as gods and everything like that as well. There was a pretty cool theory as well with Billy, and I saw it posted up. It's been denounced, but it's cool anyway. if you remember, Billy has like an amulet around his neck, and he rubs it, and it's an actually old medicine pouch. And
Right.
people were speculating, oh, that's Naru's medicine pouch that she carries the thing back. So they wanted to connect it to that, but unfortunately, Billy is part of the Sioux Indians, I understand, not Comanche, so totally a different tribe. But it was a pretty cool pickup that he does actually have a medicine pouch around his neck.
How does Billy buy it in the original? Like, remind me. Like, how does
he stands up. He stands up to the predator. He leaves the rest of the team behind, and he discards all his weapons except for a huge mother of a machete, and he faces off the predator on that log. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's one of my favorite scenes because he's basically trying to buy Dutch, Pancho, and the woman, I never forget,
The woman,
some time. And so he does, he sort of throws off his gun, he throws off his vest, and he gets that, because he takes off that the pouch, doesn't he? He like wraps his hand around the sort of the cord, and then he just like runs the knife across his chest, so he's like bleeding, and then you don't see anything, or you because he runs off into the Dutch sort of sees what he's doing. He's like, Billy, come on, and like and he realizes what he's doing, and all you hear is Billy screaming. And that's all you hear in the distance. So it's
bad news. Bad news for Billy.
But he's badass. Like, but look, that's.
He's badass. He's a cook. I meant to mention the character of Billy. They used that face sculpt for the spirit figure of G.I. Joe in the classified series recently.
Wow.
The spirit is like the Native American G.I. Joe. It's based on the Billy from Predator. Like,
awesome.
Yeah, wow.
Going back to this idea of the Comanches, like one of the things that was controversial then, like, because this could have just been, as you say, like, an indigenous warrior doing his thing and stuff, but they chose to go a different path by having Naru be, having a female lead for this film. Now, there have been women in this series repeatedly. Obviously we mentioned the woman in the first film was more of a token sort of film, but you get.
What about the chicken Predator 2?
I was going to say you get you're going to get the Predator 2 in Predators. There's
badass.
There's two female characters, and so they've always they've always sort of had that, but to have us as the main character. One of the controversies was sort of like, the Predator took out this entire elite military force, and then this young girl takes out the Predator. Like, what are your thoughts on this idea of sort of like having a female lead?
My thought was it's just a bit of marketing, and they almost kind of want the divisive reaction because there's a bit of discussion. Look, I'm far from a guy who signs off on everything PC culture does, but I think this was fine. Like, if anything, it's the flavor of the times. They want the discussion. They want the debate. It promotes a bit of feedback on the internet, and then it comes out. Luckily, it was a good movie, so then the haters have to kind of like suck their lemons a little bit, but I'm cynical of the whole thing. Like, they know what they're doing when they do this, and they do it for a reason, which is to generate the discussion, basically.
I roll my eyes at that. I mean, not Dave's comments, to the comments of these people saying that sort of stuff. Because it's actually a good point, Dave, that you say. It is a very kind of measured decision that they do, and it's interesting that they do it to generate this talk about it. I mean, I always look at you don't want to get into the details of it. I always just look, hey, we've got Ellen Ripley beating aliens. We've got Sarah Connor, a waitress, beating a Terminator.
It's very true, man. Yeah.
Why can't you have like a Native American woman beating? Like, so gender didn't even really play. I genuinely say this, sincerely say it. It did not play a part at all. And just reading all that, it's like, oh, these guys are just looking for something to nitpick on it.
Yes,
I'll make this comment. Those guys who are those, like the real keyboard warriors who are out there, and they are out there in their mum's basements, those guys would get absolutely dominated. But if they were in a fist fight with a Native American from this time, be that a woman, male, medicine woman, hunter, whatever, they would get dominated. They would get killed. These guys, we have grown so soft as a culture, so incredibly soft, that like if you're not in the military and if you're not a practiced hunter, you would not stand a chance at all against a predator anyway. So it's not like these guys would be so much better than her. They'd be so much worse, you know.
Well,
so
yeah.
it's a joke.
No,
And
I think
also as
that's
well-
a really good point. It's a really good point, actually. No, go on, right?
Even if I can say as well, I mean, looking at on the flip side, if you want to go down that route of details and such, remember each of the Yautja or each of the predators are different individuals, right? So you can't say, oh, look, you know, a predator defeated a whole crack squad. You know, that was a jungle hunter. This is the feral predator who
More crazy.
is a crazy, inexperienced young predator. So we're going to discuss about a lot of the stupidity of the predator. I put that down to its inexperience. It's definitely an inexperienced predator. It hones in. It has never been on Earth, right? It hones in on all the animals first. It's trying to find something. Up. Yeah, it's trying to find something that is worthy of hunting. So it starts at the very smallest, like snake, and then the coyote, and then the bear. So we get that kind of journey for that predator. And it's again, Trachtenberg said it's from another different hemisphere. That's why it looks different as well. So there are so many different things that make up, you know, why Arnie and his gang were beaten and Naru can win.
Well, one of the things I would say as well is, and I agree with that, because we're definitely going to get to the predator and the predator design. But one of the things that I find about this idea of, you know, Naru being the main character is the approach. Like she at no point does she stand toe to toe with this predator. Like, you know, this isn't exactly, Arnie
man.
sort of like punching it in the face and being like, "You are one ugly motherfucker." Like, you know,
Sure.
you know, and he gets his ass
Stick around.
Exactly. Yeah, I love that line. Stick around. Or like even like Danny Glover, like, you know, Danny Glover sort of like goes toe to toe with it again, but like he has like the bladed weapon, and even he gets his ass handed to him and stuff. Like, you know.
Can I say actually just Mike Harrigan, out of even more so than Dutch, Mike Harrigan, Danny Glover, his character, total badass. He goes toe to toe with the predator. He does not give up. He chases the predator into its shit. Like,
he's a great man. He's a great dude.
He's the goat.
Like,
he's the goat. If you look at all the franchise,
Mike Harrigan is the I agree. I mean, Danny Glover's also been like crazy shape for that film. It's like you go back and watch it, because he was in his 50s, like he was in his sort of early 50s or late 40s when he was doing that film. And
he was in his prime, Danny Glover, that period.
But there's a moment
fighting prime.
But you see, like,
he was fresh off Lethal Weapon 3, and he just rolls.
He changes his shit.
He doesn't. He's a scene where he, like, you know, he changes shit because it's essentially the hot, isn't it? Like, it's the heat wave. You do see him changing his shit, and you are like, fuck. Like, you know, Danny Glover's in serious shape for this film. Well done. So yeah, no, I agree. I think the thing with like Naru, like they treat her like, you know, the fact that like she's not considered a direct threat, like she fucks up, like she makes mistakes, and at the end of it, like again, it's about, you know, adapting that hunting style that she learns, much like the predator does, about how like she can't take things on head on, so she has to sort of use intelligence and traps and that sort of thing, you know. So I kind of understand it. Like, it makes sense, you know. This isn't it works for me on that sense. And they're all different stories. No, go on.
Yeah, I mean, you also get the and I think it's really well balanced, because we do get that service, I guess, from Trachtenberg about. We do get the warrior anyway with her brother Tabe and thing, and you saw how kick-ass he was. So we kind of get, I think, satisfied with that by seeing a Comanche warrior, you know, an official one, take on the predator, and he runs rings around it, and it was awesome to see. And he even shouts in the Comanche version of the film. He shouts out cheetah once a predator turns invisible again, and that was such a cool. Yeah, it was just such a cool moment because he was beating it, like he was stabbing it. He was, so you get the more standard warrior there, but Naru has to take a different route, and you can see she's kind of calculating, strategizing what to do. She finds that skull helmet, and she's like, oh, actually, he was aiming at the dog. Sorry, but the arrows went that way. And so you can see her thoughts come together with that. And so she comes up with a plan. And I think that's a real strength of hers. And also with the flowers, when she meets that fur trapper, and she said, you know, everyone underestimates me. I'm killing you. You don't know this, but I'm doing it now. And so she's taken the flower. She's invisible. And she literally shoots a predator in the back of its head. That's how close she gets.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I had a comment, like if it's like a fighter who's like a heavyweight who trades like a Tyson who trades blow for blow and doesn't take a backwards foot, and then you've got someone who relies much more on speed and reaction speed and is almost a defensive fighter, and that's what she's all about. Like a lot of her stuff, it's the classic. And I mean, this happened in olden times. Like people wouldn't fight hand to hand a lot. They sometimes would harry the enemy from a distance and then run away and try to pull them back. And there was a lot of subterfuge. Like that's kind of what she does, and very effectively. And I think it kind of invalidated the complaints then, because it wasn't like she was going toe to toe. If she'd been going toe to toe and taking direct hits from a Predator all film long, it would have been a bit
unrealistic.
Crap.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Agreed.
I mean, it kind of made movie sense for what she was doing. And like she did that funny move where she kind of do a half jump, half kick off trees and stuff.
I love that. That's so cool.
It was cool. It was cool. Yeah. And I'd like to see her back and knees in 20 years after doing that kind of stuff. But but yeah, I thought it made sense. And you are right, having her brother there. Like from the very first scene, I recall her brother pulled down, like, was it an eagle or something with one shot?
Yeah.
And
he's way better with all
guy's
that.
kind of a badass. Yeah, he's a badass.
Yeah.
Like, he's like an experienced sort of like hunter and warrior and stuff. You see about the sort of the style as well. One thing you were saying then about that, the speed, it makes me think of like in Predators. That's what Adrian Brody does. You know, sort of like because they're like, oh, that guy, he is just lean in that film. Like he's not bulk, he's lean. And so then the way he runs, it's just him sprinting with like a blade at the end and just being faster than the Predator. So he's able to sort of like come and cut it and stuff. So it's a similar thing.
The only bulk's in his nose. The only bulk's in his nose.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Predator though, because it is a different design. Yes. This isn't the first time we've had sort of like, obviously, Predators have always, and this happens in films, like they're slightly changed. But the Predator from the OG Predator to Predator 2 are very similar. They are of a design. In Predators, you get a mixture. You get sort of like, the OG Predators, and then you get like the super Predators, the
big Predators in that one. Do they have the Predator dogs in that one? Is that the one where the Predator dogs come in?
Yeah, they first introduced the idea of like Predator dogs, and then you get similar things in the Predator, where you get like a standard Predator versus the super duper Predator, which is fucking ridiculous, and I hate. But this is whole idea of genetic trading.
Yeah.
But this one was interesting because we've always had the mask as well. The mask so there was two things in this that sort of that interest me. Like the mask design's always been that sort of grey, sort of like the visor and sort of thing. It's a cool design. It's a very iconic, very simple, but very iconic. But they went a very different route in this. But one of the things that was interesting, for me at least, is this idea of like the original mask was for twofold. It's there to help them breathe, which is obviously covered in both Predator and Predator 2. It's got like a ventilator in there, but also their vision, which is revealed in, again, I think in Predator and Predator 2, isn't great. Predator's vision is a bit, it's based on sort of like this red blur, and the mask actually gives them improved vision.
It's like infrared vision they've got, isn't it? Almost.
Yeah, sort of like
it's kind of yeah.
But the mask gives them that sort of like the ability to see in different formats. But this mask doesn't cover the full mandibles; it just covers a bit. So I was always, is this still a filter or is it a ventilator? But I love the bone design. That's
cool. That's so good, isn't it?
So cool. It goes back to this hunting idea of them collecting things, doesn't it? And sort of holding on to the trophies. But then to blend it into their mask, I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that design.
Well, I had a point which I brought up when we discussed it on Signal. So I was thinking with this Predator, obviously he had the different kind of mask, which, as you say, was kind of almost more a ceremonial kind of death mask, very in keeping with the thought of Native Americans and buffaloes and stuff. Like, and then you mix it in with, instead of having the shoulder rocket, he had the shoulder sort of arrows. And I was saying to Rich, my co-host, I was saying, well, like, even though they have technology, like obviously great technology, they can travel through space and stuff. Societies go through different periods of culture, and maybe where this guy came from, his culture was this guy seemed to enjoy the more brutal style of a hunt. So he would that was their culture, rather than being like, if you look at the predators from Aliens versus Predator, who were kind of armed to the teeth because they're facing the ultimate enemy. This guy kind of liked to strip it back to basics.
I agree.
And I was kind of making that was my thought. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I agree. Because for me, one of the things that really annoyed me more than anything with Alien versus Predator, and has always bothered me a little bit with some of these things when you're having these films, was when they do show, they go, oh, here's the predators from 1,000 years ago fighting xenomorphs on top of an Aztec temple. And you go, right. So their technology hasn't advanced and they haven't changed in 1,000 years. Like, that makes no sense.
That's true.
Yeah. And so with this one, though, you're looking back and going, yeah, this is 300 years ago.
Yeah.
Or, and saying, actually, like, they don't have the laser cannons. He just has the sort of the darts or the bolts. And actually, like, their approach to this thing, to hunting and thing, is slightly different. Like, their culture, there's likelihood that in 300 years, the predator, they have a name, but I can never remember what it is. They have Tuji or whatever.
Yautja.
Yautja, yeah. The predator culture has changed in 300 years. And I'm down with that because that makes total sense. Yeah,
I think it's a mix as well. Look, if I am to just totally gig out here with just some extra predator info, look, I think it's a mix as well, like 300-year-old predator compared to the predator you see in the original film, right? But also, number one as well, going back to the fact that this is potentially a young predator. Now we see it in AVP, Dave, as well. They don't earn their plasma cannons until they actually reach a certain level of hunter. So this one could have easily have been just kitted out with that stuff because you've got to prove yourself. Also to the fact that it may be 300 years ago as well. I kind of think they probably still would have the technology to do the plasma cannons if they can traverse space. Also as well, I mean, in the comics, and I know that the films aren't beholden to the comics canon, but predators actually can live for thousands of years. I know that sounds ridiculous.
Can they really?
But
really?
Yeah. So their longevity is quite a long time. So, So I'm imagining the 300-year span for them, and maybe that's why. This is only me kind of trying to reason your point, Scott. Maybe that's why during the Aztec times they haven't really advanced, because 1,000 years or a couple of thousand years is not really that long for them.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, like, as a culture, like, as I was thinking about this the other day, like, if this was a real culture, they don't seem to be the kind of culture that's super focused on building like proper sort of societies and stuff like we do. Like, they're literally sort of more of a predator culture and a scavenger culture as well, because I guarantee you that, like, if your whole system is based on everyone's hunting off world, well, you're going to bring back a lot of trophies and technologies from other civilizations.
That's a very good point.
It's kind of a weird culture, which I love. But yeah, it's a bizarre culture. It's actually a really cool culture when you think about it, like, because they're not like, oh, well, let's go to school, let's go to town hall, let's go to work. They're kind of like, although we do have the switchboard predator in Aliens versus Predator. Remember the guy on the switchboard? And he was working on the switchboard. So he had a job. He had a job, I guess. But normally they just seem to be kind of roaming around space doing crazy shit like this.
It is interesting because again, like you were saying, if you go into the comics, you get glimpses of this, the home world, and we visited it, I think, a couple of times in the comics, and they visit it briefly in AVP.
And what's it like? I've not read these comics. What's it like? Is it crazy or what?
Yeah, it sort of changes a little bit, but you're right. Like, they never go into the deep. It's never deep into the culture. But there's a couple of that have visited the home planet, and it's usually sort of like they'll do. There's like a story that's supposed to be about sort of like two brother predators that sort of like have got this sort of history, and it results in this sort of like showdown and stuff. And so they've got like smaller stories that sort of have done it, but they've never had like an expansive world building story that's
which I don't want, because I like the idea of the predators kind of being like, they have a home base. Occasionally they might come home to lick their wounds and stuff, but primarily they're a hunting culture. Like
Yeah.
they live to hunt. You know.
Well, I like this idea of them having clans, like you were saying, coming from different hemispheres. Like there are clans of them. They're all slightly different, and they're all sort of like they've got their own place, but they go out. They've achieved interstellar travel and gone like peak.
I could see a gladiator. I could see a gladiator story with predators who are maybe like slave predators.
That would be so cool. Yeah.
Well, but if you think about it, their culture is all based on death. You know, everything about their culture, it's death hunt based. So if they were disgraced or something, or a clan got disgraced, well, potentially some slave predators might fight for the amusement of the other predators. They might throw in different monsters into the pit for them to fight. Like their whole entertainment culture would be based around violence and death. You know, because that's what turns these guys on. You know, they're sort of not going to sit there and watch rom-coms. They're going to
yeah,
you know,
you don't get influencer there aren't influencer predators or sort of like solicitor predators.
Thank God.
I'm off to work today, honey. See you later.
Selfies.
Yeah. Hunt life. Hashtag hunt life.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I like the fact that but it's always this is the thing with many of these characters. The more you give them a backstory, the more you give them an origin, or you expand on their world. It can either go really well, or it can be it becomes so complex and stuff. You know, I don't want the whole society.
Yeah, it'd be so crap. You don't need to. Yeah. Actually, Chuck Dixon is a big Predator fan, and we've had him on the show many times. The one time we went into detail because I think he did one of the Batmans versus Predators, and I always say to him, Chuck, what about a story from Predator's point of view? And he goes, yeah, good idea, but don't take it back to the home world. That's what he told me.
I agree.
Right.
Steer away, because we don't want to see the Predator at home kind of cutting the lawn. We want to see him out there doing crazy stuff like hunting.
Yeah, you've got to maintain the mystique, I think, as well. That's what much of the appeal for the character is, and for what we want. Like we just know the simple things. Like it's so, going to the Predator, it's explaining why they rip out the spines was just too convoluted for me.
Yeah.
And no, it should have just been hunting. Like they just take it for trophies, but it's like, oh no, they're collecting the DNA. They want to, harvest this and that.
What?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
They do it to show off their kill. They do it to show off.
That's what it should be.
Yeah,
that's what it should
I totally agree.
He's not collecting DNA. He wasn't collecting DNA in the original Predator movie.
No, he wasn't
worried about DNA.
He was collecting trophies. So that's the thing, is that when you try and shift that backstory, it starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I dislike that. Even if you're like, well, that's a different clan. I'm like, I don't give a fuck. It doesn't make sense. It's the same thing with a slight tangent. It's the same thing I feel with like Prometheus and Alien Covenant, where they're like, we've now got a full history. We've still got a full origin for the Xenomorph. And I'm like, I didn't want a full origin for the
totally
Xenomorph.
agree.
Like, this makes no sense. Leave it alone.
I don't hate those movies, but I also don't love those movies. I find them almost a bit of a chore. Like they're interesting enough, but they're also a bit of a chore. Like give me Aliens any day.
Exactly.
It's exactly. Sorry, Scotty. I've just got to chime in with the Prometheus and Covenant. I want to rewatch them again as well, but I feel exactly the same way as you. I think it kind of didn't satisfy on both fronts, in the fact that, okay, number one, I don't want to know about the Xenomorph's history, but you're going to kind of give it to us anyway. But also, you're not giving us a story with the focal point on them. To me, it veered into like David, the synthetic and all that. I want to watch these movies for aliens. I don't want to watch it for another completely different cast of characters.
How much about the mechanics as well? I was like, who are the fucking mechanics? Like, I didn't even know they existed.
Engineers.
Like, the engineers, whatever they're called. Like those guys, I'm like, where are they in Aliens? And it's like, well, there's one scene of them somewhere, and I'm like, they're all through these bloody movies. Like,
it's Ridley Scott. Ridley Scott's fever dream, and it needs to stop, if I'm perfectly honest. Going back to Predator, the actual Predator, there was a couple, as you said, this idea of it being a young Predator. And you made a really good point there, Ray, before about its escalation. Like, the first thing it hunts a snake, and then there's a coyote, and then the bear. And the bear scene is ace. I mean, it's sort of like,
I love it.
But it shows that it's not an easy kill. Like, it has to battle it a little bit, and it's got like, the fights. And I've already seen people complaining, like, well, bears don't act like that when the bear starts chasing down Nauru. And I'm like, it's a film. Like, it's just it's there for tension. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen the Great Outdoors with Dan Aykroyd. The bears don't act like that
Give me
either.
a
But it's a
break,
film.
like,
It's a movie
bears
about
don't
an
act like
alien.
that.
Yeah.
The bear advocates are coming out now. The bear supporters are like, bears are being maligned in this film.
Yeah. Appropriating bear behavior.
But also, don't they always say, like, from what I know about like hunting movies, there are many times where, like, if you go near a bear's like cubs and stuff, they do get quite protective.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah.
Like, I would, if I saw a bear in the woods, I wouldn't be like, oh, no big deal. I'd be like, shit.
Yeah, no. If I saw a bear's like hopping out of the woods, I think I'd be a bit like, oh, well, this is unfortunate. I'm not sure what to do in this situation. I'm soft and modern. But like I said, that I accept it. It's fine. It's not the best. I think it's a bit that Hobbit is a bit compacted, but it raises the tension. It's perfectly fine. But that moment, it's one of they sort of established one of those iconic moments where the predator grabs the bear, like basically has gutted it, lifts it above its head, and you see that the predator becomes visible because the blood just runs down,
bathing in it.
Yeah. And I was like,
it's good.
Oh, that's fantastic! Like that's such a cool image.
And it tells you something about that predator. It tells you that this predator he likes to fight.
Yes.
He enjoyed that fight with the bear.
Yeah.
And this is a predator who really lives for the kind of more brutal, raw kill,
Yeah. Can I also just add in as well? It's, Dave, I think you'll appreciate this as well. I was Dan Trachtenberg said in an interview as well, he kind of explained the difference between this predator and the other predators. And he said, the other predators in AVP, in the jungle and all that, consider them New Yorkers. He goes, this feral predator is your outback Australian.
So, he's like a redneck. He's like a redneck guy, you know?
Well, yeah, because he's bloodthirsty. He's very kind of primal. Very different.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, this is the approach. I mean, the scene with the French hunters, the French hunting group, is so different. Like in the original Predator, if you take that, even sort of like Predator 2, like the Predator stands at a distance. It uses its camouflage, its laser, its shoulder cannon. It uses its tools to hunt from a distance. That's the point. Like it's about getting in close, and it'll probably use the wrist blades and stuff. But in both those films, it takes something to draw them out to go toe to toe with them. Like it really takes. They have to feel like like for Art, like when he grabs Arnie at the end and he takes off his mask and stuff. Like he's like, okay, this is going to be a cool challenge. Like that's the point. Like it's about escalation to that. But in this one, this Predator is all about that fist fight. Like you see him taking on the bear. He just jumps into the fray with all those French hunters when they're shooting at him, and he's like lopping off heads with his shield and doing stuff. Like, you're right. Like the approach for this is not like a distant hunter. This isn't someone with a sniper rifle. This is someone with with bladed weapons that's just getting stuck.
Exactly. He's got like it's like an old Viking warrior berserker or something almost.
Yeah.
It's cool. And Ray, doesn't that, like, if you, because I've read quite a few of the comics now, and in the comics they often have different versions of Predator. Like there's like police enforcer predators, there's the crazy serial killer predator. There's there's a few different versions. So it's not the first time that we've been given like a different version of
exactly
Predator. Like
Exactly. And again, I take it back to the point that the predators aren't kind of like xenomorphs. They're not all mindless, drones, so to speak.
Definitely not.
These are individuals. Like, they're as different as, Scott, Dave, and myself, all of us. We've all got our different nuances and stuff. So
I'm the serial killer predator, man. I'm the serial killer predator. Bad blood all the way.
And their station in life as well, Dave. Yeah, exactly. The enforcer predator and the total psychotic predator. Dave's referring to Bad Blood. The comic book shit. Therefore, it's awesome.
You're an enforcer predator, Ray. You're an enforcer predator. I can see you, man. Rules and regulations comes in.
But I mean, I love the book. But I mean, I love that idea with the predators. So they're all very different, and you can't just kind of blanket them all with they all should be acting like this, because they're all very different. I mean, even the Predator 2, the City Hunter, is very different from the Jungle Hunter. A little bit more, I've heard as well, they're saying is just slightly a little bit more unhinged than the Jungle Hunter. I mean, he was willing to blow up the whole city block and detonate when he was just hanging off that that building, whereas the jungle hunter that was his last resort. He was dead anyway, so he kind of did it.
Well, one of the interesting things actually about Predator 2 that I sort of I didn't really think about until sort of like watching this. I've gone back and sort of watched some of the others with Predator and with this, but with Predator and with this, where you see them, not so much with the Predator because you don't really sort of understand it. It does not really goes into it, but there are sort of like an excursion. Like you see that single Predator is there's a ship arrives and they get sent down like a shuttle or a pod or whatever. So they are a single Predator sent on a hunt, right?
Yes.
But with Predator 2, it's one of the big ships is landed in the subway, and there are other Predators in that ship, just hanging out. Apparently, whilst this guy's doing that in the city, so it's almost like maybe it is. It's like, all right, well, he's on parole. we've let crazy Jeff out for a bit. We'll bring him back soon. But
well, I think there's a whole story behind that as well, because those Predators in Predator 2 at the end, including the city hunter, have been dubbed the Lost Tribe. So they had been marooned or lost, stranded on Earth, and I think that city hunter decided to just, as you say, Scott, I'll let him go, just let him do his thing.
Yeah.
Well,
so
he got involved in the gang war and stuff, and he really got involved.
But, mate, that's a really good point. Actually, like, we never get that backstory. Like, I don't know. I've got the novelization and the comic, comicization that they did of it. And I know the comicization doesn't cover it because it's one of those things. It's only 2 issues and it's really cut down. It's quite good though, it's quite good, but it's really cut down. But the novelization doesn't mention either. But you're right, there should be that moment that I'd love to see that, because this is the thing I love about novelizations. This is again on a whole different tangent. I know we're going off on it, but the novelization is that opportunity to do that thing as a writer. Like if you've ever read Gremlins as a I don't think many people have done this, but if you read the Gremlins novelization, it gives you the history of Mogwais and Gremlins, and you realize you find out that they're aliens.
Yeah, it does. I owned it as a kid. It does.
Did you?
It talks about them.
I want to read it.
It talks about them in World War II and stuff.
Yeah, it does. And it talks about their home planet. It does. It talks about coming from their home planet, and the same with
not
E.T.
much, Ray. Just a bit of stuff. Like
That'd be fun though.
But it gives you enough backstory. But the same with the E.T. novelization gives you stuff. But there's a whole chapter on his home planet where it sort of like it gives you this backstory of who E.T. is and stuff. And these little bits, and you're like, that's what I want to see. Like, what was happening with this ship that was trapped in Los Angeles and things. So, that'd be quite cool to see. But
this one flies off.
At the end.
But it's like, why didn't you do that before?
But the thing is, like, that to get to the point, to bring it back to Prey, obviously is the gun. Because everyone was talking about, this is Prey. Obviously, it fits in canon. It's in canon with Predator, and then they give us the gun, and I'm like, it's in canon with Predator 2 as well. That's awesome. Like,
and that's the gun. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. That's the gun the elder Predator has and gives to Danny Glover. Is that correct?
It is.
Yeah. As a kind of like as thanks for coming. You beat.
Memento. Well done.
Memento. Yeah.
So which is cool. I mean, but that's clever of Disney to let's be honest. Let's get cynical for a second. This is Disney kind of doing a bit of fan service, and they're pretty much saying we want to. If the fan response is good, if the numbers on Hulu are good, we can continue to pump out Predator stuff.
Yes.
And that's basically it.
Sorry, I mean, I don't know as well the ins and outs of it as well. I thought that Trachtenberg had written that in anyway before it all came over to Disney, because he said as well. Yeah, because he said, look, he said it in 17 whatever around distinctly to get to that gun, and
there you go.
And as a little aside, really cool, they actually couldn't find the original prop, so they saw a guy online, a mega Predator fan, and he had a replica of the gun, and they actually got in touch with him and go, can we just borrow it for this movie? And so
that's cool. So I love the fact that his replica now becomes an actual screen used prop.
Yes,
that's very cool.
That is cool.
That is very cool. But this film, Prey, is filled with little Easter eggs, and obviously the gun is the main one, and I loved it. The moment it came in, it gave me that sort of like, this is so cool. But they
Did you know it was coming? Sorry, Scott.
No.
Before, or
It
I didn't as well.
It
I
didn't
had
until
no
it appeared. Then I was like, the moment I saw it, because one of the French hunters has got it and stuff, and I was like, oh wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
How about you, Dave? Did you pick it? Or
Sadly, because I do all the news for Signal of Doom, I was aware of it. Not that I cared, like, but I was aware of that because it had popped up in the news cycle, sort of, by the time we did the show. But that said, like when it came up, I was like, I took great delight in saying that to Michelle, who was like, I'm not sure she even watched Predator 2, and there was a great debate with Rich, who claimed, Ray, that it wasn't the same thing. And I said, sorry, pal. And I went to the internet page and showed him the images, and he had to humiliatingly concede that it was, in fact, an Easter egg.
Yeah.
that was a major one.
But I mean, there's a couple of others. There's the if it bleeds, we can kill it. And
what did you think of it?
I didn't like that one. I actually thought that was really on the nose. And
I don't like it when they.
The worst part of this film for me is the worst. So the one of the weaker parts for me in this film is what I'm going to call the Hunter Bros.
They're pretty lame.
Yeah, well, they do. Yeah. Unfortunately, I think there's the thing. Like, I haven't watched all of the Comanche version. Like, I've watched some of it, so I was watching some of it, this and stuff, and it works better with that dub. It works much better in with that, and then subtitles, because when they translate it to English, like some of the dialogue they have at that point is really clunky, especially when they're sort of like the Hunter Bros are sort of like down on Naru, and they're sort of like having a go at her and stuff, and I was just like, man, you just sound like a bunch of like college dudes. Like, this sounds it sounds too modern,
dude. It's a trope. Like, it's the trope of the annoying guys on the hunt. Like, I was almost like it was just setting the scene,
Well, no, I get it, and it's also expensive representative of like of toxic masculinity and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but I don't know. There was, I think there could have been better ways of doing it. That was just the dialogue just felt like
it could have been funnier. It could have been a lot funnier. But it's also setting those guys up to just be complete.
They're fodder, aren't they? They are just
fodder. Yeah, cannon fodder. That's exactly. Just fodder. You're meant to kind of slightly dislike them, so that when the predator just demolishes them, you almost don't even notice.
Exactly. Yeah. But I do like, though, how the relationship with Naru and Toby, I think, Tabi,
really good.
It's really good. I think it feels like there's an element of sort of authenticity and sincerity between them that I just really thought was.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Can you believe? Can you believe that the actor Dakota Beavers, the guy that plays Tabe, that's his first acting gig? He's not an actor. How good is he as an actor?
He is good.
I mean, I'm not saying like he's an Oscar performer, like an Oscar performance, but as far as like first time actor goes, he was really
he did a good job.
Believable.
He did a good job. Yeah.
No, he comes across. He's confident and everything. Like, I feel like he knows what he's doing. So I think he's actually pretty good in this. Like, I think, I think because of the relationship between like him and Amber Midhunter, like, because of the way they work together, like, it makes it feel because there are times that it is clunky and stuff, and it's obviously clunky. I'm willing to forgive that, because there are other scenes that feel genuinely.
You feel a real sibling kind of like feeling there, totally. Like not rivalry, more like
it's not rivalry,
connection.
No.
Connection.
There's a warmth that he has, like he sticks up for her.
Yeah,
like
I wasn't sure what that word was. Warmth, right? There you go. I wasn't familiar with that word.
You hardly use that,
Dave. That's it, man. Yeah.
But when she kind of tags along, and he's kind of like, no, she's good with the medicine. Just keep her along. Like, he's always sticking up for her, which is
he's
great,
giving the opportunities, isn't he? He gives her those opportunities because he's not going to kick her back, but he's also not going to put her down. He's actually like, I can't tell these guys you're a great hunter. Like, I can't tell them that, but I can give you the opportunity to be here. So let's see what we can do.
Totally.
Which I thought was really cool. Final point. So let's just get on to the final things. We've talked about the gun. We've talked about all the different Easter eggs and stuff like that. But we did. This film ends with an Easter egg within. Not Easter eggs, but it's sort of a glimpse. And in the title, she returns. She's holding the head of the predator. Again,
loved it.
Yeah. Again, if you've seen, there's another one. There's a comic series that was released between the Dutch series. I forget what it's called now, which was sort of, again, he was an indigenous sort of like a soldier.
Big game.
Yeah, we're doing that on Signal of Doom next week. We are doing Big Game.
Have you read it yet? Have you read it?
It's very good, Dave.
I haven't, but I will have read it by next week when we do the show. I'm looking forward to it. It was Ray's suggestion. I said to Ray,
Enoch.
suggest
a
storyline.
Yeah.
that is not concrete jungle. And he said big game, and so we're doing it. Yeah,
It's such
It's
a
good. It's good, Dave.
It's a good run. Yeah, it's good. It's a good book. And so yeah, her walking back with the head sort of reminded me of that series.
Yes.
But then obviously it goes to the credits, and you get sort of the animation stuff in that sort of like that sort of cave painting or that sort of indigenous people sort of style. And then it ends though with like 3 ships appearing and coming down, and all I could think of is like, yeah, they're fucked.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Why would it take, like, okay, one predator got killed, one crazy little predator. I mean, 3 ships are going to wipe out that tribe in 5 seconds. You know,
Well,
they might not wipe it out. Like it might be collecting the body, like and
much like we saw with Predator 2.
Exactly.
And also, if you've ever read the first Batman versus Predator, written by Dave Gibbons.
Yes.
The same thing in that, like the predator actually is forced to commit ritual suicide because it it goes
humiliated.
After. Yeah, it's humiliated and stuff. So yeah, you're right. They're probably just coming to collect. And
how much would it spin that tribe out for her to dump that head down? Can you imagine? Because literally,
exactly.
I made a comment actually to my girlfriend when we were watching it, or just after. So I was saying to her, like in the legends of, in the campfire legends, they had legends of monsters and stuff. Because like in the primitive world, everything that they don't understand, whether it be technology or whatever, is kind of a bit magic. Because the world's a lot bigger, kind of thing. Like it's a lot more mysterious. And so even having legends of hunters and predators and stuff, they've got like boogeymen in the night that they actually believe are kind of real. And then she comes in with one and just dumps it down on the ground. And it's like, shit. Like, so the legends
Imagine
just aren't legends. Like,
the little kids running around the...
Yeah.
That's a way of disciplining kids. Because like that head goes on a spike, and they're just like, if you don't eat your dinner, you don't go to bed.
Exactly.
Oh, in that case, I'll get Naru. Cool. Naru's coming to get you. She'll put you to bed. Oh no, I'm not messing with her. She's crazy.
It's pretty cool. I loved it. I love that scene that she brought that back because I believe someone else at one point brought back the tiger or whatever it was. Remember? The brother?
The brother. Yeah.
Not tiger, but whatever it was.
Like a lion, mountain lion, isn't it?
Yeah. And so that was cool.
No, I agree. It runs out that parallel, but I want to finish on this before, because I want to go talk about potential sequels. Quick to wrap on that, but we want to talk about the stupidity of the predator, because I want to talk about how he beats the predator. Because, and I will say this, of all the things that happen in this film, for the predator to be beaten by the targeting system on its own helmet, whilst it got stuck in a swamp, really bothered me.
Well, I didn't even understand what happened. I actually said to Michelle, "What happened?" I wasn't even. I was so dumb that I didn't even realize that thing was a targeting system. And I thought it was just a cool helmet he had on. And so I didn't even understand it. And when it was explained to me, I was like, look, it's the weakest part of the movie, but at the same time, they have to kill it somehow, so,
Yeah.
I think, I think it when I first watched it, it doesn't have the grandiose finish as like the first or Predator 2 or even Predators for that reason. I'd agree as well. I think anyway, they wanted to show Naru kind of beating it with her smarts, and that was, I guess, the way to do it. Because I had scenarios in my head like, what if it got bogged down in the swamp, and then she comes over and she starts like hacking it or killing it. Then you'd get the naysayers going, oh, how can this slight girl do all that? So she had to do it through, as you say, Dave, subterfuge and deception, and that this was a way to do it. I mean, maybe they could have come up with something a little bit more inventive for it, but it was signposted throughout the film as well. I mean,
they sort of do this, and this is the problem I had with it, because I often do this, and I try to fix things in my head, but they do show it, because they show it really well, because we're used to the dots, the triangle of dots, right?
Yes,
and they show that, and then it shows the dots separating, like and then you see the darts going into a tree, like the bolts going into different things, and I was like, oh, cool, it is a targeting system, like it follows the laser targeting. But the problem with the ending is, so many things have to fall into place for the predator to be in the position for the targeting system to land on it, because it's not a big targeting area, it's quite a small triangle. So for it to fall in the swamp, fine, I'll get that, I'll accept that, because that's been used, and so that, you know, it's the sort of, you know, it's going to come back, it's going to play a part in the finale. I'm fine with that, not a problem.
Yeah.
But to have it sort of like on a tree and for it to get stuck at that point, I was like, I'm not buying that. For me, what it should have been is she should have been like a bit like Dutch in the first one, sort of like, you know, come on, kill me, come on, doing that. And then as it got closer, and when it was the fire, she pulls out the helmet, knowing that the targeting system, and almost like then the darts could have been fired back at it. Like, you know, she's had that.
That would be cool. Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah,
that would have been smarter. And I'd have been like, okay, I get it now. That would have been like she's using its weapons against it in a much more constructive way.
So what can you explain to me? Because I'm still unclear on what she actually did. Can you explain what actually happened?
Yeah, so she sort of tricks it. She tricks it into falling into the swamp, which she fell into earlier in the film.
Yes.
Hoping to kill it, maybe. Like hoping.
Yes.
Like,
So hoping to drown it, kind of thing.
Yeah. So she's hoping it'll get sucked under. She's got her axe and she's ready to sort of like give it that final blow. But it has its is it like it's on its wrist, or it's got something?
I think it's on the gauntlet.
It's on the gauntlet, isn't it? It fires those bolts out. And so the bolts, though, use the laser targeting system to find their target. And what she's done is put the helmet in a tree or in a bunch of trees right next to the swamp. So when it turns on the wrist gauntlets, the targeting system comes on as well, and you just see that these red dots are sort of like on the side of the predator's head.
So just luckily it was in the same spot.
Yes, exactly.
Well, she's just kind of go. Yeah, well, I think she's true. I mean, as you say, Scott, she should have like called to it, and you should have maybe seen it walk towards her through the swamp, you know, so she can align it with it, because it's kind of like, David, a tripwire. If you imagine it like that, it's got the three scopes, or the three lasers, is where she wants to line the predator's head. So it was coincidental that he was just there exactly. It would have been good if like she kind of goaded it towards her or further
into
away
a kill
from her,
zone,
or whatever.
Into a kind of kill zone.
It needed to be in this exact spot, and she was like,
so I didn't even realize. See, I'm so stupid sometimes that I didn't even understand what actually happened. That actually sounds worse, but it would have made more sense if she'd had it carrying it and had pulled it, like, I mean, better than this, but like kind of pulled it from behind her back.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what Scott was saying. Yeah,
100%.
Exactly. As you're saying, Scott, and they kind of come back and kill him. That also would have made more sense as a viewer rather than having
that would have been pretty cool.
It makes her more proactive in its beating, in the beating of it. So, but yeah, so I do feel the ending, the killing is a bit of a damp squib, unfortunately.
But the lead up, sorry, Scott, to it, the fight I thought was really good.
Oh yeah, the rest of it's
like she set up those booby traps, the spikes on the trees, because she let it, because she knows it's in the treetops. Also, that I reckon it was a homage to Predator 2, where he lops his own arm off, and he just stares at it. And I think he was in shock, just like, what the. And that was really cool. So a lot of good moments in there.
There is some that, and that's why I think I was so disappointed by the very end, because like everything else before it's really good, and I was a bit like, oh well, that sort of seems a bit lackluster. Let's wrap up on this then, right? What follows this? So I'm going to ask you both, right? So two things, right? Let's start. Do you want a continuation of the Prey story? Do you want to see the return of Naru, or do you want to see somewhere and someone else? So somewhere or somewhen else.
Ray can go first.
Yeah,
I think
Ray, go for that.
Ray, go first.
The easy answer, I want it all, Scott. So, I will happily take a sequel to Prey, because I think Amber Midthunder as well. Unfortunately, Dakota Beaver's no longer there because his character died, but she was really, I loved watching her in Prey. It was really good. So I'd be totally happy to see what happens. But having said that as well, we've got a wide canvas now. So somewhen I would love a somewhen too, maybe another period piece. Or I'm actually going to go something a bit weird and just say I'd love to see it like really in the future. I did see recently online there was the Predator during the Skynet reign, and there was like a cyborg Predator I saw, and it was very cool.
Wow.
I would love to see Predators maybe in the deep future as well. So,
cool.
yeah,
I like that
Yeah.
idea, the deep future. That's kind of interesting.
That's
Yeah.
a cool idea.
Yeah. What about you, David? What are your thoughts?
Okay, so don't really need a sequel to Prey in terms of like I think we've been there, done that. Maybe in a few years for sure, but I think right now they're better to go bigger. I would like to see sort of a samurai kind of style thing, and I want to see it. I also want to, like, more importantly than just the period of history, I want to see more than just a hunting party. I would like to see Roman Empire versus Predator, or Japanese samurai, and down the track maybe another Native American, but it's not super necessary. I love Ray also. So that's one thing I want. I want a much better Aliens versus Predator, and I would set that off world.
Yep.
And have very little humans in it at all. Maybe one human.
They
And
just get in the way. Yeah.
So Predators versus Alien done much better with a much better storyline. And all that kind of stuff. And Ray, were you saying I would like to see Predator versus the robots from Terminator, like the Terminators?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
So yes, and like if they could do that, and I'm not saying they do that next. I'm saying they do that down the track. But I think their next thing should be another period piece, because I think it works well, and you just expand the story more and give a different locale. And then I think you throw the game out by doing it far in the future, off-world. So you take it outside of Earth, and I think that would be really cool. And I think the future is actually now quite bright. So
I think so. I
me
think it's a
too.
great opportunity.
Yeah.
You say about the samurai one, I saw a really awesome proposal on this one. The actor, and again, I was like, this guy is perfect for it. The actor, I'm going to butcher his name, so I apologize. Hiroyuki Sanada, from Mortal Kombat, Bullet Train.
Yes, I know which one. Yeah.
All those guys. I love him. He's a great actor. Him against a Predator in sort of like, Edo, Japan. Like, as that samurai. Basically, take sort of like Yojimbo as a wandering samurai against a Predator. Have like
I'd like to see a Predator. I'd like to see in Ghost of Tsushima, the video game, a Predator download and a Predator just roaming around.
Seriously,
in that game,
that's what I was thinking. That sort of game, that character against the wandering samurai, that Ronin versus a Predator.
Yeah. Also, I'd like to see a proper Predator game, like that would be open world.
I would
like,
love
why
that
not?
as well.
Like, give me a Predator video game that's more than just a sort of first-person shooter thing. Like, give me one where I can be Predator. You know what I mean? Like, I can be Predator out there in space. And that would be great.
I think you might get it. I think you get it. The future's bright. I think
so.
Prey seems to have made enough of an impact that people are recognizing it. It's a good, solid film. It's made a lot of, people are going,
definitely, yeah.
It's
exactly what the franchise needed. The franchise
exactly
100%.
Exactly. And it had a tough. Sorry.
No, go on.
Oh no, I was about to say, and it had a tough hill to climb after the debacle that was the Predator. So by any account, this has just done wonders for the franchise.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Well, I think what you'll do is, I think this is going to have a wider impact than just the Predator franchise. Like, I do think you will see more. I think we will see the return of Naru, although that would be the first time we would have a character returning. We've never had a returning character directly in any of the Predator films. Although they've tried, obviously the Predator wanted to have Dutch in that final scene. Yeah. So glad they didn't.
Yeah.
But
and don't forget they wanted to have Ute and Sigourney Weaver come down at the end.
Gosh.
Like, it was just bizarre what they wanted. It didn't even make sense.
Thankfully that never happened.
So there's all that. So they could have the first returning character, which would be interesting. I like this idea of going through sort of like different things, not to the Wild West. I don't want to see that, because I've seen Aliens versus Cowboys. I don't think
that'd be
work.
Cool. I'd like to see that.
That would be
awesome.
I was just thinking, that'd be cool.
Although Bone Tomahawk was probably a good example of how it could be done. The film with Kurt Russell, which I think would be a good idea. But yeah, I just think there's so many ideas that you could do, and I think especially with Marvel now doing the comic book series and stuff, I think we can expand on that mythology and that sort of thing. So I'd be interested to see how they do it. But I do think this is going to go beyond the Predator series. I think there'll be other franchises that are going to look at this and say, "Oh, we can go and do something else. Let's try and do something else."
Exactly.
And it
Why
wouldn't
not?
surprise me if you end up seeing other iconic characters going into different periods or doing something similar to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all about execution at that point. You know,
Yeah.
and frankly, you know, like I think this one worked with the lower budget and everything,
Yeah.
but in my real heart of hearts, if I want Romans versus Predator, I don't want low budget. I want
you want it on the
Roman
cinema, in the
War
cinemas.
Machine,
Yeah.
the Roman
Yeah.
War Machine coming up against the Predator. That's one of my dreams. You know, one of my fever dreams is to have kind of a war situation. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways it could go. But like I say, I think down the track, maybe in 2-3 years time, revisiting Aliens versus Predator might be a really good idea.
Yeah.
Keep it close to the comics. I think it could be good.
Yeah, we also have as well. Just to remind everyone, I think it's going into production next year, 2023. There's an Aliens TV show.
Yeah.
Really?
Run by Noah Hawley, the guy that did Legion, I believe. He did Legion, that TV series. But I've seen some of the concept art for that already, and it looks really good. But again,
and
they're
Ridley
going
Scott's producing that too, isn't he? I think.
I think he might
Ridley
be
Scott's
producing.
involved.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but it's going down the same route as well. It's going straight to Hulu or whatever. So I think they're testing the waters, like with Predator and Aliens. There, hopefully we might get a Terminator one because they're the big three.
They own them. They own it all. This is the thing that's weird.
Yeah.
Like, Disney owns it because the thing to remember is I think Disney is testing the waters now because as you said, you've had this. You've had Prey.
Yes.
They are doing this thing with Alien. The other thing that was already greenlit but has been pushed is the new Hellraiser film comes out in October with a new actor or actress playing Pinhead. Cool. And so I think and that's apparently that's stripping back down to basics and going back to the
Clive Barker, man. Clive Barker.
Well, the guy I forget the guy who's doing it, but so again, some of the concept art, they released a picture of the new Pinhead, and it was just like, I was like, oh, this is phenomenal. Like it looks.
We did. Sorry for promoting, but we did Hellraiser on Cinema of Doom, which is the Patreon feed for Signal of Doom, and gee, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that franchise. I really do.
I've read back when I was in my teenage years. I read a lot of Clive Barker, like quite a lot of his books, and he was really brilliant. And I mean, he was the guy. Did he wrote Hellraiser, didn't he? I'm pretty sure it was.
It's Hellbound Heart. Clive Barker wrote Hellbound Heart, and then obviously he wrote and directed the first film. So
yeah, it's great. Like give me more Hellraiser. It was fantastic stuff. Like
Jamie Clayton,
love it.
Jamie Clayton playing Pinhead. It looks amazing. So I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see franchises just stripped down to their bare bones.
Yeah.
I do have a correction. I do have a correction, guys. I question whether Disney owned Terminator. I believe that is owned by Skydance. And
distribution. No, distribution is. Oh no, am I wrong? No, because Dark Fate and everything's on Disney Plus.
The only reason I say that is because I believe. Look, let me research it now. The reason I say that is because I think we researched on Signal one time when we were talking about it. Terminator rights owned by.
It may
Disney.
be one of those. It may be one of those complicated ones where like certain films are owned by different individuals.
Skydance currently owns the Terminator rights to Terminator. Were auctioned in 2011. So. I don't know what the relationship is to Disney, but Skydance actually owned the rights to Terminator.
Okay, but Dark Fate is on Disney Plus.
Might be a distribution.
Maybe there is a distribution deal. Yeah, but Disney do 100% own Aliens and Predator. And what I'm saying is, you could certainly bring in. They can do some kind of a deal to get Terminator involved in this.
How good would that be?
Would be. I think people would flock to the cinema to see Terminator. Predator. In a Skynet world, I think people would flock to the cinema. You know what I mean? Like they would be beating the doors down.
We look. Just on a final note, because we'll get you guys are going to get off to bed and stuff. But we now live in a post-multiverse world. People in the cinemas know what a multiverse is. We fully accept this idea of things traveling between the multiverse and whatever. It's happened in the MCU. It's happening in with the Flash at some point in the future.
If they ever release it.
Yeah. Depends who's going to get. Yeah, it depends what happens with Ezra Miller. I still think that's a whole debacle.
Hilarious.
But that's a different
Can of
episode.
worms.
That's a different episode altogether. But I think you're right. Like, you could do these things, and I think you could build up if you were really clever, and say, right, here's the canon. Because my partner on for co-host for Stories Out of Time and Space, Julian, came up with this idea. It's like, right, here's the 20th Century Fox science fiction timeline. And basically had like, okay, here's how it starts, here it goes. And he put like Alien and Aliens in the same universe as Blade Runner. Had all this stuff. Yeah, it was like, you've had sort of, you've seen the Roy Batty and all that lot. Yeah, well, they're exactly the same as sort of like Bishop and all these others sort of.
Yeah, nice.
You could, so you built this whole thing out. So you could totally have it and say like, that's the universe and have these crossovers and stuff. And Predator exists in that.
Totally.
So
I will say, I think, like, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but I thought Blade Runner 2049 was just so slow, boring. But like the actual, you haven't seen it yet, right? Well,
no.
It came out about 5 years ago, buddy.
Time to catch up.
But like the visual aesthetic of the original Blade Runner is so great.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like,
I love the
and
original.
It's been stolen so many times. Like, and the visual aesthetic in Blade Runner 2049 is also very good. But right now, I'm going to go to bed tonight thinking about Skynet World. Crazy war, and into that war comes a Predator.
Yeah,
how hard would it be to kill those Terminators, eh?
Well, can you imagine that? Like a Predator with like a silver, like a Terminator head on its belt. Sort of like,
I can imagine it.
That'd be awesome. Don't forget, it'd
be great, and you could almost have. And I'm just kind of like fan fictioning here, but you could almost have John Connor and his little band kind of almost do a deal with the Predator. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
an enemy,
like a bit of an alliance.
An easy alliance.
Yeah,
it could get real crazy. And you know what? When I think of that, I think of money, and I think of money pouring in to Disney by the bucket load, and that's the kind of thing they like.
Test it in the comics. You're doing the Predator comics. You've got Alien comics. Start to expand on it. Like test these crossover events. I think you can totally do it. Right, anyway, we're going to wrap up there. We could go on. I know we could go on.
We could,
So, should we give our scores?
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Let's wrap up on that. So, yeah. So, maybe Dave, you go first. Actually, Dave. David, go first.
Okay. I was also going to say. I'll give my score out of 10, but I was also going to rank the movies because there were people. There were people online. I want to make this point now. There were some clowns online who were saying Prey was better than the original Predator. These people are clowns who don't understand. They're just drinking the Kool-Aid. Prey, I would give it 8 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of my rankings, Predator 1 is like a 10 out of 10 movie. Predator 2 is like an 8.5, and Prey would come in at 3. And frankly, I think very favorably of Prey. And after that, I don't really care about the rankings because I think the rest of them aren't that fantastic. You know what I mean? Like Predators is better than the Aliens versus Predator, and the Predator is at the bottom. But I'd give 8 out of 10 to Prey, and it's my third favorite Predator movie. And frankly, it's very close to Predator 2 in my rankings.
Yeah, I'd agree with you, Dave, as well. Predator, the OG one, Predator 2 just, I think, nudges out Prey. So I give Prey probably 8.5. I'd give Predator 2 9, and of course Predator 10. Then it would be, I think, Predators after that, and then I like, and people will shoot me down as well on this, but I like Requiem, so I'd give that next, followed by AVP, and then at the very bottom, ranked at 100,000 would be the Predator.
Yeah, it's a hell of a drop off. I think I'm very similar. I think I'll give this about 7, maybe 7.5 for Prey. Solid film, great things. Some things they sort of doesn't quite work, but I think I'd love to see a sequel. I think this opens up the franchise again. But as a ranking, Predator. You're not going to get better than that first film. It's sort of like an 80s, an early sort of a classic. I think Predator 2 just nudges out Prey, and then it's sort of Prey and Predators. I think I think there's some great stuff in Predators. But I think at this point, I'd say Prey slightly edges out Predators. So Predators would be 4. And then AVP is quite far down, and then Requiem is a little further, and then the Predator is being stomped on by everybody else.
Exactly.
Being just
Yeah,
god
exactly,
awful.
yeah.
So
That is terrible. And the irony is that it's created by one of the Godfathers, the
Yeah.
actors from the OG
It's true.
film, like Shane Black.
We talked about it before, but like you said about the alternate endings that were suggested for the Predator. Like,
Awful.
there was going to be a fight on an army base, and there was predators in military uniform and stuff, and then there was going to be a Weaver and Arnie.
The emissaries, yeah,
and you're just like, oh, this sounds god awful.
I think the cocaine really took hold as I was writing the script. And
bizarre some of the things that were suggested. Anyway, we're going to wrap up there. So I'll go through. So let's go to Dave. Where can people find you, and where can people listen to you for Signal of Doom?
People can find me on Signal of Doom, which is a weekly podcast I do with my buddy Rich. Comic books, comic book movies, and pop culture stuff in general. Heavy focus on Frank Sinatra and Bob Dylan always. I look. Signal of Doom's on Facebook, Signal of Doom on Twitter. Yeah, chase us up there, and we come out every week, and we do special segments. And we've got Chuck Dixon coming up next week, another interview. But we've had people on like Stephen Grant. We've had Jerry Conway on, the creator of Punisher. We had the guy who created the Dungeons and Dragons world, the Forgotten Realms, on.
Jerry
I did
Gygax.
3 hours. Sadly, he's dead.
I was going to say, Christ.
Ed Greenwood, who created.
Oh, yes, okay.
Who created Forgotten Realms? He came on, gave me over 3 hours of conversation.
Wow,
Lovely guy.
Nice.
Awesome.
He was such a nice guy, and it was such an interesting conversation. And so we've had a few interviews, and we've had J.M. DeMatteis is going to come back on shortly too, Tom DeFalco. So check out Signal of Doom, guys.
People, check it out. Go find Signal of Doom. There'll be a link down below. Ray, what about yourself? Where can people find you?
Look, best place to find me is on Twitter at RayRayPod, REY Pod. Just do a few podcasts about Moon Knight, Into the Night, Moon Knight podcast, To Know Is to Fear Her, the Spider Woman podcast, Last Sons of Krypton, the Superman podcast, a monthly show on Capes and Lunatics all about Scarlet Spider, which is a lot of fun with Dave.
Yeah, I'm on that too. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And I've just started a new project, funnily enough, about predators. Predator and Prey, it's called. And we had the great fortune of chatting with Ed Brisson just lately. That will drop any second. But I want to give a shout out to your show, Scott, 20th Century Geek.
Yeah.
Anyone who hasn't listened yet, check out Scott's chat with, is it Rhea? With the female actions, all about female action stars.
With Rhea.
Absolutely. Yeah, fascinating. I was hanging on every word there, Scott. I loved the chat that you had. I loved bringing out all the female action stars throughout the ages. Really good stuff. So go check it out. It's fantastic. If you love your action movies, like if you're listening to this about Predator, you'd love action films.
Rhea's age.
Check
Rhea
it out.
is fantastic to listen to. She's really
That
cool.
great.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, as you say, go check these guys out. Signal of Doom, Into the Night, and all the others, especially like say Predator and Prey. I know you're going to. I've seen it being announced on Facebook, so go check those out. We'll put some links down below, especially Into the Night because obviously I have that Moon Knight connection. The book is coming on. It's a bit slower than I hoped, but it's time. It's working. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we're doing for any of these, go to your podcast catchers, leave a review, 5-star reviews, but any feedback is always greatly appreciated. Go leave that review. And if you really like what we're doing, go check out our Patreon, www.patreon.com/20cg media. That's 20th Century Geek Media. We do 30-minute thoughts. I've got Twilight Zone, weekly Twilight Zone podcast on there with Julian, and Creator Corners. I've had all kinds of people come on for that Creator Corner. So go check it out. There'll be a link down below. And just for $5, I said £5 or $5, rather, not a minimal amount. You will get an absolute glut of content, and it's fantastic. So go check that out. But for now, David, Ray, this has been an absolutely phenomenal conversation. Thank you very much for your
loved
time.
every minute of it.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
No, good. We're rounding out the Predator retrospective. This time again soon. I think. Hopefully, whatever comes out next. We'll be back. We'll be back.
Definitely.
But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.